have the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Chamberlain.
All please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any disclosures or declarations of conflicts from commission members?
None here.
Okay, I have one. Jenny and I met yesterday with Stacy, since he is no longer, he had already resigned, so it was okay to discuss the bylaws. And so that's.
I have a report on that I was going to give later.
Okay,
Just as, I didn't know.
okay, okay, we'll let you do that in a few minutes here.
Okay.
Okay, can I have someone make a motion to approve the agenda order?
I so move.
Question.
Sure.
Why don't we have a prayer like the city council?
I have wondered that same thing myself in going to city council meetings.
Yeah, I don't know, I think that's unique in Utah, and they announced that if you have another faith and you want to have time to
Yeah,
do that. But
they do.
I would like to see it put on the agenda.
I second that.
Oh, I second.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. but-
I know.
We can definitely.
Can we add that?
No, it's not formal.
In the policies and procedures, there's actually a section where it says the rules of order.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
we can add that as a note to add an opening prayer /
Statement of belief.
Or statement of belief, yeah.
I think a statement of belief would be more appropriate than saying prayer because
Sure.
some people don't do prayer. They do a statement of belief.
Right.
I think that's unique throughout
I
everything
think
that
that's a
happens.
great, yep, I think that's a great suggestion, Dean. Okay, now can we have someone give me
I make a motion, we accept the agenda order as published.
I second.
Okay. I'll vote. We vote on it? Yes,
Aye.
okay.
I,
Okay.
You might want to just state whether that was a unanimous votes.
Oh, since we didn't do it one by one, okay. That is a unanimous vote to approve the agenda. So now we have the review and possible approval of minute meetings from March 13th, from the Planning Commission meeting, and April 23rd. Have you all had a chance to review those minutes?
Very good.
Okay. Hi,
Apologies,
Matt.
I'm late.
And is there anyone find any problems with any of those?
and just to recap that we did take those trainings, you got all the certifications you needed.
Yes.
Okay.
I reviewed them, but I can only approve the ones from the 23rd because I wasn't there for the
Okay,
13th.
so we'll take two separate
Yeah, if that's okay.
votes.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion on March 13th minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as posted.
I second the motion.
Okay, and vote.
I
Abstain.
I,
Aye.
And
Okay,
I move that we approve the minutes for the April 23rd meeting.
and a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and vote.
I guess I have to abstain because I wasn't at that one. And
Right.
I didn't realize that till now, so I'm learning from Jenny.
I
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, both of those have been approved. And we'll now hear reports from me, for the pro tem. Really, I guess we're going to be discussing this. Stacy Eaton has resigned as chairman, so we will be talking about that in our business items. That's really the only thing.
There's,
Will you just let everyone know that we're accepting letters of interest through Wednesday. I left a flyer at your.
Yes, we are accepting letters of interest to fill the vacancy of planning commission. We are going to be accepting 2 new
Because
Alternates.
alternates.
Alternates,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
There'll be one commissioner and one alternate.
1 4-year term. Oh,
they're all,
well,
So Tylee Perkins has resigned as alternate. So we
Right.
would fill his seat as alternate and Stacy's seat as commissioner.
we'll have Angie.
I was an alternate before. How does that work?
So,
So the
Do I need to?
commissioners are appointed by the mayor with advice of council.
okay,
Oh,
So that'll
okay.
be chosen next week.
and city
So if you
council.
want a
okay.
commissioner for that seat, just like send an email or something.
Oh, okay, so I have to send a formal letter of interest. Okay,
So they'll discuss it at that point.
They
okay.
just don't move her up.
And then we
No,
make,
not immediate. She'd need to apply
Okay.
or show interest for the member on the commission.
we
Okay.
make recommendations to the city council for alternates for the planning. commission.
If,
it's just you don't need a motion right now.
I think you have to, you got to receive the letters of
Now,
interest.
this is just reports, your staff reports from Val. She's just that, so you don't need, did you make a motion? I'm sorry.
No, he was just asking a question.
Yeah.
He was just asking a clarification.
I make a motion. Apologize.
okay, so we're looking for 1 planning commission member for a 4-year term and 1 planning commission alternate for a 1-year term. So, so Angie, we certainly would like you to apply for that.
Right, I will. You should.
Okay. Planning commissioners, do you have anything to report?
I have a report. So just wanted to disclose that on June 11th, I met with Val and former Planning Commission Chair Stacy Eaton, and when he contacted me to schedule the meeting, I confirmed that he would no longer be on Planning Commission before consenting to gather, because I know it's important that we do our work in public
Mhm.
and in the public eye, and it's not legal for a quorum of commissioners to meet without public notice.
Right.
That said, I feel it's important in the interest of transparency to report on that discussion. In our meeting, we discussed the creation of the Planning Commission bylaws, and Mr. Eaton shared a copy of the Bluffdale bylaws with me and a copy of the Kaysville bylaws with Commissioner Pressler. I have a digital copy of the Kaysville ones I've been reviewing. We will be discussing this item further, so I'll reserve further comment on the bylaw process for that agenda item. We also discussed the grading ordinance, including several of our opinions on what, if anything, should be done about the presence of a minor grading permit, which we will discuss also as an agenda item later in the meeting, so I'll leave this report at that. We also discussed some of the relationships between city staff and planning commission, which have been struggling, and we talked about the importance of having a relationship of mutual trust between the planning commission and city staff. I would like to note that some of my key values as a planning commissioner are transparency, and I hold the position as a servant of the public and sacred trust. It is my hope that the Planning Commission and city staff will be able to develop a stronger, healthier relationship currently and in the future so that we can continue to function well as a city. That's my report.
And I second all of that. Okay. Darren, do you have a report for us?
I do. Essentially, I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the engineering, our capital facilities projects. I don't have current pictures of where we are on those. One of them being the restroom for Westfield Park. That is nearing completion. We're probably about 95%. The toilets are installed. They're just making sure that the plumbing and everything is working. And we're probably, I would say by the end of June, we will have those open and ready for public use. So on that one. And then there is the water tank in our pump house. That right now is, just so that you know, they probably will be complete. They're backfilling the dirt around the tank. So it's going to be partially buried. And so with that, they'll be finished. But the power, such as the transformers and some of those key elements to fire up the water pumps to pump water up to the new tank, are delayed. and we don't have an exact date for those. So the infrastructure, the buildings, the tank, everything is going to be in place except for power.
And
So
this is the water tank, the new one on the new bypass road.
it is as long as the bypass, it's the 2 million gallon tank.
Yeah.
And then the other one is just the ongoing construction of the parkway. Might have seen a rock that rolled out into the road. That the whole reason that road is not open was we were very much aware that there was some things happening there. Engineers have been working on that. That's why the delay in the finishing of the project. So it just confirmed to us that we made the right decision. Didn't confirm, I shouldn't say that, but we already knew that we made the right decision to make that a safer pass through that area. And as soon as we see that, you'll see some construction starting to happen again on that parkway. And so we're moving forward. Other than that, I've pretty much all the other things. City council, just so that you know, Afton wanted me to let you guys know that they are having a public hearing for the budget fiscal year 2024, 2025. And that's a public hearing for the public. That will be at their next city council meeting.
Next Wednesday, right? Mhm.
1 week from tonight. Yep, we are working on a few of these ordinances. We've got, just so that you know, there will be a public hearing in the next meeting that you guys decide to have. We are the chicken ordinance essentially, and the single-family housing, or single-family, housing.
Yeah, the residential district.
Residential, yes. Yep. I don't know if the attorney, if you have anything to add to that additional.
No, the review's been done. I think the updates were pretty straightforward. So I'm just looking forward to having a discussion when that comes up and move it along.
So as we have that public hearing in your next meeting, we'll be able to take input, and the public will be able to give you guys
Input.
their input as well. And then we'll go from there.
I have a couple of questions, and
Yes.
we move back to planning commission for concerns too. You kind of skipped after she was done. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't. First off, Darren, question before in the city council at the truck stop, they did approve them to start moving. I see forms going up, form boards and stuff like that. Did they ever finally get the approval from UDOT on their traffic light?
So so where that is with the UDOT right now, it is at UDOT, their traffic light division. They are reviewing that. They are saying that it should be within the next week. That would mean next week, not this week, this Friday, the following Friday, to get that back with any final comments to the engineer if they have any. They went through 2 or 3 reviews, and because that is a private development, I don't really get into those reviews with UDOT or with the actual developers there. And that light will be a UDOT light. It will not be a city light.
That was my question. Who is responsible for that light and the maintenance and the cost? Because
So
people don't realize those lights cost over $25,000 a year just for maintenance.
yeah, so just it surprised me, the power. Well, I did not know this about power, but power is about $1,500 and $2,000 a year
Yep.
to run the power on them.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is going to be owned by the UDOT.
Okay. Thank you. Now can we go back to planning comments, planning commissioners?
Mhm.
Thank you. I just want to bring, like we talked about having public comment on our agenda. I understand commissioners pulled it off and don't want it on ours. I think that's not American. I think we ought to have public comments so people have the right to speak on something that's not even on our agenda or bring to our attention, because we can't be out there all the time and we don't know what's going on, and we're supposed to be part of the planning of the community and looking at the future and things like that. So I'd like to put that on there. And then I'd also like to.
No, I think the city council,
The city,
not the commissioners.
okay, city
Yeah.
council, I'm sorry, yeah. City council, and then also the statement of belief or where we could open with a word of prayer. I think we still are a country of faith and freedom of speech and things like that, and everybody should have that freedom,
Yep.
whatever faith they are on that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, Afton is not here tonight, so Matt, our city attorney, do you have
Yeah, two
stuff for us?
comments, basically relating to what's been discussed. So the SAP Travel Center, one of the things the city council did in that presentation last month, or the request, the city council said, yeah, we'll go ahead and issue a building permit,
Mhm.
so long as they understand this C of O, certificate of occupancy, is not going to issue until the light issues, everything's signed off with construction drawings, but of course the main one is the UDOT. And so with that, I've been working with Darren to get a memorandum of understanding in place, that if SAP wants to move forward, it'd be their election, they could operate under that memorandum of understanding, or they can wait until the 50% design standards met, which then UDOT would sign off on the plan. So they have two paths forward. And timing wise, Darren could speak more to the timing of what.
So they have submitted 100% design review to UDOT, and UDOT is reviewing 100% design.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, that's last review that I know went in. It was 100% review. So they should be getting, and as soon as UDOT is okay with that, I will have those construction drawings in front of them. And the contractor is really anxious to have that anyway, just because that way we have a full set of construction plans. That way they can start building infrastructure, their side of the road, which is will be Tokerville City's road. And there's all the bonding, everything else is in place to cover that. So yeah, we're golden there.
So question, have you released a permit? Because I do see forms going up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll actually see trenching of piping and things like that on there as well. They'll need to trench in the water line because they need to put in fire hydrants, because they can only go so far with cement walls and things. But when they start adding combustible materials, they will need to have a fire hydrant within so many feet of that structure. So you'll see trenching on their side as well.
And then the other comment, and this goes to Dean, I think that's a good idea in terms of the public comment section, as the commission's going through the policy review. That could be an item you could look at and saying, our policy is, our normal agenda is going to include the following items. So you could have that discussion based on the comment tonight. I've had an opportunity to review the policy that Ruth had drafted together. So I would take that potential draft and compare to what the other municipalities that have been provided, and work on essentially the working draft here. At the end of the day, the city council is the one that makes the final approval for the policies here, but I think it's great that you guys are putting a lot of input and thought into what that draft looks like before it's moved up. And that's it.
Okay. We'll move on to the business items then. Our first business item number 1, discussion and possible appointment of Planning Commission chairperson for the remainder of 2024 because of Stacy Eaton's resignation. So discussion.
I'll open it up or let you.
Go ahead.
Val,
Can we do that?
I think it's only right to ask you to be the chairman and for the rest of the year. And I nominate you as the chairman of the Tokerville City Planning Commission.
And I second
Second
that
that.
nomination.
I third
Second and
third.
Okay, so I guess we take a vote on that.
Further discussion?
Any discussion?
I think you would do great.
I'm not sure I want it, but okay.
You're doing great so far, too.
Oh, thank you. Okay, any other comments, discussion?
Nope.
Okay, should we take a vote on it? Right, that's the next thing, vote? Okay,
Take a motion or?
no, we already did motion
Motion's there, you can put it out for the vote.
and seconded. Okay,
Aye.
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 I guess. Okay. Okay, second item, discussion of possible appointment of planning commission pro temp for the remainder of 2024. And I would like to nominate Dean.
I second that.
I'd accept that.
Okay, any other comments? Questions? Wow, if we keep going like this, we're going to be done with this meeting, nothing flat.
Good.
Okay, let's vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Okay, so number 3, business item, discussion of possible recommendations on resolution 2024.XX, modifying the Tocqueville City Planning Commission annual meeting schedule to meet once a month. So we've always met once a month until the first of this year, and then we decided that we needed to have 2 meetings a month. And so far, we haven't really had a second meeting. But the thought process there was it's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to call an additional meeting during the month. I am all in favor of having only 1 meeting a month. However, does it serve the city well to do that? And so that's the discussion we need to have tonight.
I'd like to see the flexibility for a second meeting in case the city does need us to review something,
Yeah,
so that deadlines don't lapse and things like that.
yeah, that's my concern.
So what's the procedures on that? You just have to post the agenda and meet the state laws and everything else.
So
And you can call an emergency meeting or a special meeting at any time.
I would defer to Daisy. She knows all that state code and that we had talked a little bit earlier with Val in our coordination meeting about giving a deadline if we're going to cancel that second meeting, or maybe it's vice versa. I don't know. We cancel that meeting to give a deadline, like when they're the week before our packets due, so you guys know by the Thursday that it's been canceled.
That would be good.
I don't know if that's something you want to take into consideration of this as well.
I apologize, but I'm pretty busy and I booked my calendar almost 3 months ahead. I'm booked the rest of this summer already. And so I take it serious to make sure I'm here at these meetings and stuff. And I haven't seen a need of a second meeting yet. If we've canceled them and everything else. And so I don't have a problem with this resolution, but just like the other commissioners, that if you have the flexibility to call a special meeting and meet those deadlines. But I also believe, because I've been in this and you guys, because of somebody else's emergency disaster because they haven't been planning right or doing it right, that doesn't justify to go ahead and have a meeting, because it costs the city money to have these meetings. Staff's here and everything. It's taking your time. It's taken away from your family. People need to know that there's going to be a meeting there. They need to get the applications in to comply with the requirements and everything else. And I'm a strong believer of that. Otherwise, you're going to live your life on meetings.
Right.
I have a question.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay, I heard that for some of those deadlines, that if the deadline lapses, then it automatically defaults to just be,
They're not really like a deadline. They're more of I guess it still is a deadline, but it's a time cutoff. You've got to have your complete application by this date, or you get moved to the next meeting,
oh, okay.
whichever that is. So
That was my question, is what happens if that happens?
yeah, they just get moved to the next meeting. You have to have a complete application for us to move you and actually say, okay, we can move you to the planning commission agenda. So, and usually that's about 3 weeks, I believe, before this meeting tonight. They would have had to get the application in so that we have time to do, if there's needed a public hearing, all the other different, get the documents together. And let's say they come in 3 weeks right to the day and they submit that application and then it's not complete, they still, we as staff would possibly just push them to the next meeting. And they would kind of miss that deadline because it needs to be a complete application.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we busy enough? I know there's a lot of things going on. We've heard that from you quite a bit and Afton.
So
Are there enough things going on that it's important for us to have 2 meetings a month right now?
I think what we were trying to do with the 2 meetings was to accommodate applications such as grading permits, final plats, or, just that
Right.
part of it, zone changes, different things. But the big thing that we're the busiest with right now is getting our code so that it matches each other from section to section.
Right.
We've got a lot of inconsistencies. Plus, we have the state mandate before the end of the end of the year. We need to meet the state's mandate with our subdivision ordinance,
Division.
and there's going to be some fairly decent little changes there. So towards the end of the year, there's a good chance that we would need to meet a little bit more often so that we can have those for your review, then come back in 2 weeks. But I get what Dean's saying too.
Yeah, I do too.
We can do what we need. And I believe now, Attorney and Daisy, we could call a special meeting if we needed to so that we meet that mandate. Let's say we come sometime in December and we've almost got it done. We've only got 1 meeting before the end of the year. We know we're not going to quite get everything finished by that meeting. We could have one in the interim, a special meeting. Now, I don't know the process to do that with us. I know that when I was a planning commission chairman, that we added a few back in, it's been a while. I won't say how many years, but we did add special meetings, but there was a charge for it too. If it was like an app, if somebody wanted it, but I think they pulled that out this several attorneys ago.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a fee schedule for a special meeting, but there's 2 sides to look at this. You can have the meetings in place and then cancel them as you go, or you can have 1 meeting a month and add through a special meeting. Depending on what the action item is, you would then have meet the proper notice, which for what I would say the major topics like subdivision approval, you're looking at the Thursday before. So you have that notice requirement. But if it's just a discussion item, that might be a 24-hour notice. The other thing to keep in mind is as you set these dates, the staff has their kind of a 3-week lead time. So if you have 1 meeting a month, there's 1 month filing deadline for any applicant to get a final application in.
Mhm.
But if you have 2 meetings, technically there's going to be 2 filing deadlines a
Right.
month where an applicant comes in and manages that. From the workload that I've seen in terms of applications coming in, right now I would say 1 meeting a month would be adequate. There will be some staff updates, code updates that'll be coming through in terms of the city ordinances, and that can be evaluated. Hey, do we need to have a special meeting just to go over some of these updates? But I think most of them are going to be fairly straightforward, where it's not a very strong substantive discussion. It's more of just cleaning up the code, and that might be something routine business you can work through fairly quickly. And Daisy may have some additional comments in terms of the notice requirements or how we can work with applicants and topics that are coming up in the agenda.
So as you asked about current workload right now, I believe we, depending on when you guys have your next meeting, we'll have a zone change before you, or zone change application request. And there is a possible, it's not going to be next meeting, another one. It would possibly be a general plan amendment. So that's really,
What's your opinion then? What do you think?
I go with what you guys want to do there. And like Dean said, developers and different things need to plan accordingly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a very, one of my favorite sayings is let's not hurry up to mess up.
Yeah, true.
Daisy, is it more work to cancel a meeting or more work to
Yeah, that's what it boils down
send out
to.
notices and then have to cancel, or?
It's definitely more work to add a special meeting, because that would mean I have to call every single one of you, make sure they're before posting anything.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm fine
Fair
doing it
question.
either way. I do it for the city council at times, usually like they're more readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah. so-
Okay, so I have a question. You mentioned the subdivision ordinance, that's the one we have a deadline on. How close is that with you right now?
That's
Or
actually.
is that with Riker?
That's actually with Sunrise is working with it.
Okay.
I actually had a phone call since Riker is leaving the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
I had a phone call with him and the planner that's working on that with Sunrise. He said he's probably about 70% through. It should have some drafts for us here shortly. Shortly, I would think would probably mean within the next less than a month.
Okay.
Because we need to start getting that.
Because that's going to sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 months to get those done. So by the time it goes back and forth.
And that consultant is very aware about that. He's very much on top of it. We have our annexation policy. I guess that's the city though, right? Or the council.
Yeah.
How'd you guys start?
I guess it's not possible to say we're going to cancel the second meetings for summer, and then in the fall, we'll start the second meetings again. Is that a possibility?
Need to be,
You can have special.
You can.
yeah. I don't know if there's something that would prevent that. Do you?
No, you just set the dates. I mean, could be,
Oh, okay.
you
So
know,
we
for
just-
the set third quarter of the year, it's only gonna be one meeting a month, and the fourth quarter will be 2 meetings a month. Yeah, that's entirely up to you.
Screen is basically, isn't that the
Yeah.
resolution, Daisy, that the city council
Yeah,
adopts?
that's been moving before. Wednesday, they can change it.
Move certain ones from that,
Right.
what's on the screen.
I still think that we can only have one, and if there's a special meeting, maybe 1 or 2,
Okay,
then we can put that special meeting. But I agree that if somebody thinks it's got to be special and they haven't planned for it, they haven't got the application in it, then they should have paid for it.
And
I
it
mean-
is on the fee schedule.
Yeah.
I think, thank you for checking that, Daisy. That's awesome.
so, okay, what do you think, Gary? Let's take everyone's opinion here.
Well, if it's not more work for Daisy to have to put an extra meeting in, then just leave them off the calendar and do them as we need them.
Okay,
She just said it is more work though, didn't you?
Well, I just have to call
It-
each one of you to see if you're available.
Oh,
And if not,
okay.
I'll have to just get another date, but I really don't mind doing it. I'm
Okay.
used to it.
You know, I
There is a
personally-
charge,
Yeah.
there is a charge to the applicant. Our fee schedule is what
if we,
Daisy was
if we
saying.
have to.
If we have a
call
special meeting
special
for
meeting
them.
for them.
But not to the state if it's to deal with the subdivision thing that
No,
they've put on
I
us.
think,
Yeah.
well, here again, I believe that our consultant is competent enough to get us stuff. And I think that,
Not going to
we
make us
can.
have a December 24th meeting.
to tell you the truth, I think we're gonna have it ready to adopt at city council before Thanksgiving. That's our goal. I talked to him about that today, and I said I would really like to have it in front of city council, their second meeting in November. And I said, there's our goal. Let's meet that. And he says, I don't see why we couldn't.
Okay.
I did bring up with him that we had been contemplating going to one meeting a month.
I lean toward fewer meetings.
Okay,
So do I.
then
I
I
guess
will
it's-
take
make
a
a-
motion.
Mrs. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve the new resolution 2024 XX with the new planning commission dates, eliminating the second meetings through the year, and then always be open. But just to follow this agenda item, I say that we approve this.
I second that motion.
And I'll take a vote.
I.
Aye.
Okay, and it passed. Okay. Business item number 4, discussion and possible recommendation on a final plat application submitted by Firelight Development for Sun River Firelight Phase 2, tax ID number T-128-PV1. And Darren, you want to
So.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the background on this, there's I just handed you the the agenda item sheet. So you can see on that background that the Firelight Development, they have submitted that application for the final plat for Phase 2 of the Sun River Firelight. This application has been deemed complete by the staff, and comments are provided. Basically, the comments provided are in the staff comments. Riker did a really great job. This is kind of when we get to the final plat stage, this is kind of a formality, but it's definitely something we have to move on to the city council. If it comes to a recommendation of that, I'm not saying you have to give a recommendation of approval, or it's up to you guys. But right there, basically, you can read those if you need any clarification on that staff comments. I'd be willing to answer any questions you might have. I guess really too, this is the second phase. So phases 1 and 2 preliminary plat were approved in 2022. And then the final plat for phase 1 was approved. I just went and checked it. It was in August of 2022. And so in the interim, they have been doing their construction plans, getting their final plat reviewed by the city, and actually out there building phases 1 and 2, actually putting infrastructure in the ground. And so they decided that they thought that they only was going to have enough interest to do one phase. That's why they just was going to record phase 1 at this time. But they were going to build most all of phase 2. And now they're getting enough interest that they think they will probably have enough to fill phase 2 as well. So that's why phase 2 is on your agenda, because I told them you can't start selling those lots without getting the proper approvals. And so this is part of that approval. As per the application, it is complete. They've submitted all the documents they need. And as you can see on the screen, that is phase 2, which is just north of phase 1. Does the cover sheet have it kind of has that, right? Can you zoom into the location map? Daisy's already got reading my mind there.
Yeah, if you would show,
Yeah, so there's,
like you did me this morning.
yeah, so right there. So there to the left is the parkway that's being built up and down right there. And, yeah. And then, so the road that they're building coming in right there was Daisy's outlining with the cursor. That is phase 1's on their final plat for phase 1, which has already gone through the process. Phase 2 is just to the north there, as they've got highlighted. That way you can see in relative or retrospect to where the parkway is to where these phases are. The pond, the irrigation pond, is up there under the letters T under site. So that is the irrigation pond.
Yeah, when I first saw this on here, I remembered approving a preliminary plat for phase 1, but I didn't, and I went back and found out that we had approved it in 22. And then I was gone in the August meeting, so that's when they approved phase 2. So that made perfect sense.
Final plat, phase 2, yes.
Yeah, that was the preliminary on that, yeah. So
That's through
that's
city
been
council.
2 years ago, so almost, so.
And in that whole interim time, they have been moving forward with preparing plans. They have off-site infrastructure, so they have sewer line that they're putting in, a pump station for that sewer line. They have natural gas infrastructure construction plans that they've been doing. So they've been actively moving forward since that time. And then also the bypass, the bypass was being built at the same time they were trying. And as the bypass got closer to where they could actually get in there and start doing their improvements on their subdivision, they did.
Yeah.
So they're already moving forward in good faith there. So
This will allow them to start laying out the subdivision.
if any of you want to come, I would be willing to take you over and show you where this is. We encourage you not to go over there in your private vehicles, though. That's active construction zone. But yeah, they're actually putting curb and gutter in over there right now.
I'd like to go. When would you be willing to take us?
Let's work it out after the meeting sometime. I don't want a quorum by any means, but we could go.
We can have 2 or 3 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, as long as we don't have a quorum.
Call it a special meeting.
So do they have their road in, that they're accessing these 2 phases already?
They do. Sorry, my mic cuts in and out because of my.
And how are they entering, where are they entering to do this construction work?
Daisy. So they are entering through the north side right now. The north end of the bypass road is where all as well as the people who are building the water tank for the city.
So they
yeah.
are coming in, they're not impacting anybody else.
No.
No, they're not coming through Westfield because actually Westfield, that end portion, that is private property. We shouldn't be driving across that. That's an easement for that house out there on the knoll.
At the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really,
With that access road, Darren, is it dirt road or has it been paved?
that's been paved that's paved.
Side and to the south as well, or just?
Oh yeah, we're paved almost all the way to where the boulder fell. So we're paved from the bridge.
Firelights access is really a paved access.
It is. And then right here is the entry here. We have that two access requirement. They actually have a road that they're paving and from on the south side that comes up and then goes around and loops where Daisy had showed you with her cursor on that side. There's a connection there on the north, and then it comes down and right there to the south, like just she's showing there.
So they're getting pretty quick to go vertical?
They are. The city council, maybe the attorney could to speak to that with the motion or not motion. It was a discussion only item that the city council talked with them about.
Yeah, so Firelight came in with the idea that they're looking at trying to get at least one model home for the parade this coming year. They recognize that the road's being worked on in terms of the parkway getting that open. They recognize power is also one of those critical things that need to happen. But what they're looking for is, and the city council gave the approval, is to go ahead and pull a certain number of building permits.
8 to 10, if I remember right.
Yeah, they might pull up to 10. And now in terms of what they actually use will depend on a number of conditions. But those building permits will have to get approval from the fire district because certainly they could put the foundations in, but as soon as you start getting wood material, framing material, you've got to have the fire protections in place. And so the council understood that between the developer and the fire district, they'll work out whatever that is.
And just so that you know, right now, they do have their water lines, their water mains, the fire hydrants, everything's there. The thing is they're hooked into the Westfield tank right now, and they've only got roughly, I want to say 5 to 10 PSI. So it's not enough water. So they'll have to figure that out. And keep in mind, this was just discussion only with the city council. So that'll be on another agenda to where they actually come through and actually give the formal number of homes. And the fire district and fire marshal by state code, to be able to put out a fire, they have to have somewhere on site. I can't remember the number of gallons, but it's quite a few gallons for each home. And it would be very spendy for them to try to do more than 1 or 2, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. So they talked about bringing a portable tank, right?
Or they're like portable stand tanks. Yeah, portable stand tanks. And those stand tanks, it was like 20,000 gallons or something like that. And most of those big stand tanks you see are not 20,000 gallons. They're more like 5 to 10 on the big ones.
So looking at your staff review, you still are reviewing some of the comments and for construction on the layout, but otherwise they're in compliance with everything else.
So yeah, right now they do not have everything in. They don't have, the roads are not paved. There are a few pads that need to be brought up to elevation. So those would not be, if you got a lack of a better, with final construction. So when when we finalize a subdivision, we have all the utility companies come in and sign off on a sheet that says we have accepted that the utilities, our infrastructure has been installed and we have inspected it. And that includes our public works department for water and streets and everything else. Plus they have to have their compaction tests. And the nice thing about what Firelight's doing almost on a daily, if not 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, I receive compaction tests on their trenches, on their walls, their little walls that they have that they're doing in there. So they are really, usually I don't get a report until that final, and when we do the what they call the as-built drawings or drawings of record that shows us where maybe a little variation in the line would have been or things such as that. But yeah, so we get really close to getting the finalization of the subdivision that way. They do understand infrastructure is, well, we understand the infrastructure is there. It's just not live and active as of yet because of power transformers, the water tank, not having water that will pressurize that area.
So I see Firelight Drive is a public road, but all of their interior roads in their subdivision is a private streets. And so they're responsible for those and the maintenance and everything for here on, and the city does not require them to accept them.
That's part of the MPDO that they did. That's basically a development agreement with inside that. So if you guys would like, that's a public document. You can get a copy of that.
I just saw that. I just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah, it's as I coming from an engineer and a public guy, I don't. Private roads definitely have their purpose, but I like public roads.
Darren, will this be is the plan to build this without additional funding from a PID?
That is correct. They phases 1 and 2. They have already came through, and true, this has been the same thing, is on the north side of this phase 2, they have a site approval for their recreation center for their residents, or community center, I'm sorry, community center for their residents. And so, yeah.
I have a question about the required forms and certificates. It says that you have them all, but I'm not sure I saw them all in the packet. So will they be available like in the future or somewhere else?
So yeah, so some of those things that we require, just like some of the things that we require are a geotechnical report.
Oh,
Before we
okay.
even let them start, what that's referring to, records comments, is before they start doing any type of construction or any type of approval of the construction plans, we have to have those geotechnical reports. We have a drainage study report. We have a lot of just different things. That's what we're talking about as our code. Is
Okay.
it's so inconsistent. We require it, but it's at final plat. But at final plat, the game's over. We needed it way back at preliminary plat. So those, yes, we could provide those to you guys
Okay.
if you'd like to see.
But you had those for
Are they-
preliminary plat is what you're saying,
Yes,
everything.
we do, and for construction drawings.
Okay.
What he's referenced there in the code is the checklist.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Commissioners, any other discussion? Questions? No? Okay. I'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve the phase 2 site as it has complied with all requirements of the city code and of staff's recommendations, that it is in compliance and that they are fulfilling their responsibilities to the city and to the different fire department and all the other public utility departments, that they are in compliance with that.
I second the motion.
Okay, I'll take a vote. Angie?
Aye.
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 Can I just add one thing?
Yes.
If they cannot record this plat until those improvements are completed and that final approval is given on the subdivision. Know that they can't. They cannot record that plat and start selling lots until that happens.
Certified that you get all the proper certifications for
So
completion.
does our motion need to include that?
No, you're okay. It's just part of the process. I
It's
just,
just typical
And-
process.
All that's going to be provided to the city council too, right? The final certificate, yeah,
city council will essentially get the same packet you guys have.
okay.
It usually happens months after.
Yeah, it's because really, we really, it's like I said, the phase one was done. It probably could have been done. It was done in 2022. It was just a formality back then. As this is kind of not a, I shouldn't, I'm not. This is important that we have this approval and things because we definitely don't want them out selling lots before they have improvements finished.
Okay. Let's move on to business item E5, discussion on the grading ordinance. Now, you've got the grading ordinance. You provided us the grading ordinance, is that correct?
Yeah.
As it stands.
Yeah, so the packet has what the city council passed earlier this year in terms of the update. They had there were 3 items that they wanted additional review for the planning commission to come up. So it's been on the agenda for discussion.
Right.
Most of that discussion is related to the minor grading scenario. I've also been working with staff and have submitted comments on the permanent erosion control policy that's part of this ordinance that passed, as well as some other comments on how to implement those 3 items the city council said, hey, let's take a closer look at. But the planning commission can look at all of the grading ordinance as there's been discussion on the minor. The city council wasn't specifically looking for changes on that. But again, the ordinance review process and what you recommend and move up could be any or all of the ordinance being looked at.
Okay, it would be helpful to have a redlined copy so that we can see the changes because, I mean, I was in that city council meeting, but none of the other commissioners were. So they do not know what those recommendations were from the city council.
You're talking those 3 points. Yeah, I can pull off the top of my mind. One is looking at this idea of a bond for let's say the permanent condition or the landscaping of the property. That was one. They wanted to evaluate whether that was possible. There's interest to have a bond because right now there's a grading permit and there's a bond tied to getting the grading done, but they're concerned about dust mitigation or water and erosion, how to manage that. So that was one of the topics that was being looked at. And in short order, there won't be any red line related to that because the state of Utah has come in and said, I found some statute that has specifically language saying for subdivided parcels, you cannot what they call a landscaping assurance, meaning you can't require a bond for somebody on their private property to hold a bond over maintaining the condition. So the idea is we have policies in place and that would give the assurance that moving forward over time, here's the policy, this is what you're going to abide by, and the information, the plans in place that then staff can say, yep, we're going to approve this engineered grading permit because there's enough practices, best practices, design built in or construction that will deal with it.
If I remember correctly, when I was in the city council meeting, they were concerned about, because Firelight specifically wants to move some dirt from one area to another area. And they were concerned about how long that dirt would be sitting there. And I think that was part of the reason that they wanted a bond on it. Is that
Yeah, so there
correct?
was a discussion about the idea of moving, you will, one, it'd be the permit to move or excavate,
Mhm.
and then another permit to place,
Mhm.
whether it's on your same project, if the landowner has two different sites they're pulling from and placing,
Right.
there'd be two different permits, or if it was just placing, but you're getting your dirt from outside the city.
Right.
So that was one of the ideas that was being discussed, that they didn't want stockpiling, and that's part of the ordinance already, so you can't stockpile and let it sit. So the idea is over a period of time, you've got to get it done. And here we're really looking at, I think it's 5 years. You've got to be able to
You can,
perform.
it's every year and then you come back every year to extend it. So if they're still building that pad at the end of the 5 years, then we can collect on that grading bond that we hold for 5 years. And just know that it wasn't just for Firelight. When we sat down and crafted this, currently we have a couple different applications that we're going through right now that's moving dirt from one site to another site, not for Firelight. There's a possibility on the other side of the freeway that we'll be doing the same type of grading activity. So they'll have to get a grading permit for the site that they're taking from and a grading permit for the site that they are placing the dirt on. And so, we don't want to just say, hey, my big thing is I want it for the whole city. I don't want it just for one specific development. And it's got to be good for everybody, not just one. And so I believe that the grading ordinance that we have right now is pretty good. As we sat down with city council a few months ago and went over this, there was 3 changes really three things. And I wished we probably should have had that red line for you. It was changing just one word to another word. I can't remember what that was.
Wasn't on page 3, we're changing the is to are? That was one of the notes I
Could
had.
be, but I think it was,
They wanted to add in a word, something like permanent.
yes, permanent erosion control plan.
So the city council approved this on
Catch-all permit,
March 6th, signed it and approved it,
Mhm.
going through, and then they just want some wordsmithing adjustments on it.
So as you see as Daisy has there, Council Sands made the motion that they would continue the existing ordinance with looking into these modifications. 1, maintenance and perpetual permanent until the construction begins and takes place. And 2, require a surety bond. So that's where the bonding came from, for the engineering grading pads until the construction takes place. And when we talk about construction taking place, we're talking about going vertical with something.
I'm a little confused. If they made a motion and they want those changes, why is it back in front of us and those changes just weren't not made?
They wanted you guys to look at this as well.
They were substantive enough that that's the procedure. If the recommendation comes up and there's significant changes, it needs to come back through the process for evaluation here, public comment, and then recommendations are made back to the city
Okay.
council.
Yeah, I think we probably ought to have the red line version in front of them, but I don't think we have that in front of them right now, do we?
Yeah, the red lines haven't been started because one of the big questions is the bonding question. So there's 3 points. If you take the paragraph at the end of page 3 onto 4, that highlights the 3 things that we're looking at. The number 2 was the bonding question, and that's been answered, that state law prohibits that for subdivided parcels. So that's,
And
that's just not going to happen. I wouldn't recommend it. If the city did it, it'd probably be challenged and lose. The number 1 is I think it's not just the maintenance policy or the policy that's adopted at time of the permit being issued, but it's taking a step forward and saying, do we want to put in the ordinance essentially more teeth in terms of the maintenance obligation? And what that could do is, as you specify the maintenance obligation, and if there's a violation, then you can use your code enforcement as a method to address those maintenance obligations. So that's how much now. I think we've got a pretty good working idea in terms of what the policy would be. We can look at that and say, okay, do we want to take some, all, or none of these policy ideas and actually put them into the code? I think the policy is fairly comprehensive. I look at it one way, it just may be duplicative if they're not following the policy. But if you feel like, hey, we really want to have some strength under the code enforcement, then you can move it over into the code and make it very clear that a landowner, if you get a grading permit and you're subject to the permanent erosion control policies, that there's going to be some heavier weight behind that in terms of code enforcement.
But also, if you just enforce the ordinance as it is for maintenance, dust control and everything else, and that has a penalty or a way to fine and things like that anyway, it's already in there. So why are we duplicating it? And yes, I can see it, but why are we putting a hardship on somebody? And yes, I'm a firm believer that they're responsible to take care of their property and not affect the down or the people down. And I've seen that. So, you know, things like that are already covered in the ordinance and in the codes, excavation and everything else, in construction, things like that. I would suggest, and this is the chairman and the rest of the commission, that bring those red lines back. It sounds like they wanted some certain things, and I'm concerned because anybody knows in construction, if you're moving dirt, it's going to be more feasible if you can move it to another site, get it ready to prepare and everything else and make it cost efficient. That's just good business practices and everything else. But yes, then they have to be responsible for what they're doing and taking care of that. And if it's 5 years and they need extended, and yes, I see a lot of mining pits and things that they don't do the reclamation and they don't do the things that they're required and that they need their butts kicked.
Yeah,
Hands up.
I think also, Commissioner, is that the expiration of 5 years, it gives them incentive to get that pad completed by then and into a permanent erosion control state, to where if they do have anything, we can go in with code enforcement. And if you look at our fee schedule, those are pretty hefty for the first, few days. And then even then it gets really hefty after that.
And I don't want to put a burden on somebody, mom and pa, that's trying to get their house site built, but they need to be responsible to their neighbors, making sure it doesn't affect their neighbors.
This part of it is in per those engineered grading and in the ordinance. There's the minor grading. There's those different. This is for the bigger projects, not the small home sites.
Understood.
Yeah, and then the third point I think was well taken by the council is they want to avoid problems, bad actors, where we have people that are going to be pulling multiple permits and have a way to encourage good actors and prevent bad actors. And the third one is if you have an existing permit and you're not in compliance with that, that's basically grounds we're not going to give you more permit until you bring it into compliance. And so that should be a fairly straightforward integration in the ordinance.
Yeah, that's
So
standard.
where are those
Yeah.
changes on the thing? That's what we're having a hard time
On here.
finding.
Yeah, in terms of we're not.
Bonding issue addressed already?
You can't do it.
Yeah, it's been
Against state code.
between getting my information back to the council, that's been addressed. The staff and I have not put together an actual red line for possible action. It's just been more of discussion to keep it on. I would say probably by the next meeting, there can be a red line for additional discussion and start looking at it.
I suggest we continue this to the next meeting until we receive the red lines.
Mhm.
So we
Second that.
have something there that's in place that we can
Yeah.
forward that would be able to be codified.
It's for discussion only. This is not a
Right.
motion, doesn't
Okay,
need a
that's right.
motion.
So if we look at the red lines next time, do we need to do like a public hearing if we're going to recommend that the council adopt the red lines?
I think public input would be very helpful. Landowners, especially anybody that's looking to do development that's over the 1,000, metric, then yes, I think we absolutely need public input.
So in realisticness here, though, we won't have by your next meeting. We went to once a month,
We went
didn't
to a
we?
month.
Yeah, never mind. We will. We can do
Should,
that.
huh?
We possibly could do that. Sorry, I was thinking 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, just because getting the red lines put together in front of Matt and then meeting that requirement by tomorrow to be on next, yeah, we're good.
And we understand July's a bad time with
Yeah,
holidays and
definitely.
everything, and
Yes.
vacations and summer. October's worse with hunting season.
So from a standpoint of drafting, is there a strong feeling one way or the other in terms of putting in the ordinance any or all of the policy guidelines or the policy requirements for that permanent erosion control? Do you guys feel like the ordinance should include that or just let the policy? Because the idea is the policy can be updated and it doesn't require the formal process. But the ordinance, it's a lot harder to change. So as issues come up, like for example, one of the recommendations I had going back on the policy was policy has to show or that they've got FEMA approval for anything that's in the floodplain and they maintain that. That's due to some other issues that are going on within the city. So it's a lot easier to put that in the policy for the permanent erosion control policy rather than coming back and putting in the ordinance. So if the council or the commission here feels strongly, hey, there's things we want to see in the ordinance, great. But I like the flexibility, and I think the staff would agree that having it being a policy that can be updated and really address the situations much better than the formal ordinance process.
Who updates the policy?
Staff. It would be staff with it, and then I believe the mayor has to sign off on that, correct? Yes.
I agree with what you're saying, but I still feel like I need more information before I
Yeah.
can.
We'll get that
Give an
back to you.
opinion.
We'll get that red line to you.
And I do have a quick question. It sounds like bottom line from what you've explained, is the whole reason they brought this forward in the first place because they wanted to do the bonding, but then they found out that that was illegal. Was that like the main?
That was a big question the council had.
Okay.
When we were having the discussion, they asked it of me. I didn't know the answer. So they said, we're going to approve it, but we want to have a motion saying, have this issue go back and specifically look at it.
Okay. Okay.
And I agree, if you can put it in policy, it's a lot better, easier for staff, easier for the applicant to comply with policy and everything else. We have too many damn laws anyway. Excuse my French. So,
I share that sentiment. I prefer the policy to stay in policy and
I-
like just those two simple changes of the red lines would be my preference.
That's helpful. We'll work with
I
that.
lean toward that too. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Business item number 6, discussion on the Planning Commission Policies and Procedures Manual. I'm a little confused as to why this is on our agenda to begin with, because I know Stacy made it very clear he didn't want staff. I mean, and I think staff needs to have input. I just think that it's something that we need to create ourselves. So we can look at this, but I think we need to come up with our own.
So one of the reasons is we met with attorney, and he suggested we get a starting point somewhere, somehow. And so that's all that is.
Okay.
At the same time, is its recommendation. The staff had already done some things. I will say this, that usually with ordinances, policies, and different things like that, staff are involved in that process with you guys.
Yeah.
We're here to help you guys however you want to do that, and those policies and procedures are yours. Definitely, like we've talked about with Commissioner Haymore earlier, as just talking about putting prayer back in, those different types of things, the public comment, those things I think are important. That's why I say I think it's important for you guys as you draft this, as Jenny's looking at the other ordinances that were provided by Stacy. I think that's super important as well. we were just looking, like I say, when we met with attorney, he just said, let's put that on there to give you guys somewhere to start. And you can take a heed to it or not.
Okay.
I have a question. Oh,
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I do have a little report that's further
Yeah,
than what I said
let's
earlier.
do. Okay.
So I have started reviewing the Kaysville Planning Commission bylaws because Commissioner Eaton really liked those. I also have the copy of the Bluffdale ones that he gave me, and then the ones that we've got before us this evening. And so I guess I was just going to propose that we just keep discussing this for a while, but at the moment, like, I feel like we're just kind of in the information gathering stage. So the staff's helping us gather information. We've had other information. If any of you want to gather other things that you want included, or as you have a chance to look at these fully, if you have thoughts of what you want incorporated, I'm happy to kind of spearhead this. You can let me know what you want, if there are things that are important to you. I think it should take us probably a couple of months. I know it will take me at least a couple of months to finish reading all of these and digesting them and kind of coming up with what I think is what we hopefully as a group think is right for Tocqueville. But I did have a lot of questions. Like, does anyone else, what do we want to do to move forward with the process as a group? Are we comfortable with me being the primary one reviewing all these things and coming up with with another draft or an adjusted draft from the base drafts? And then once we approve them, does the city council need to
Yes.
look, like, do they approve?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
so
how's
the
the
city
process
council
go?
under the city code, that's the body that will put the policy in place.
Okay.
We accomplish all this at a planning commission meeting publicly, right? Is that how we actually do all the work for it? Okay.
You would not want to meet.
Yeah, you don't meet privately. Okay, I just want to
Things like
clarify that.
But they can
But-
individually like email me or call
Yeah.
me and say, oh, I was reading
Yes.
this and I think
Okay.
this, right?
Yes.
Or is it better to wait
Or
and
would we
share it all
copy-
in the
would we
meeting?
copy everyone on it?
The attorney there.
Yeah, so there can be communications one-to-one
Okay.
talking about that, but if you get 3 or more, then that would be considered a public meeting. You have to
We don't do that.
Okay.
meet the notice requirements for that.
Okay.
So I think internally there can be communications. Hey, I saw this, or at this point I think would be helpful. And like Darren said, this draft here is just simply getting the information into your hands
Mhm.
and looked at together with everything else. But yeah,
Is there
I think
pressure for a deadline to get this done?
No.
no, this will be the first time the city council has had their policy and procedures manual probably since 2019. I think that's how far it goes back. And the planning commission has not had policy set in place. That was one thing the last commissioner was really interested in moving forward. So we're just continuing that.
And I think the
momentum here.
reason he was is because he went to a training for planning commission chairman. And so that's, I think, where he got the idea from it, which is a good idea.
I'd like to formally thank the city for putting this together. I read half of it today and I thought it's really well done and I've learned a lot just from what I've read so far. So thank you for doing that. And I'm comfortable with having Jenny head it up. So
Yeah, I am too.
I have no problem.
I just had one really quick question for the attorney then is, when we are adopting ordinance, and this is not ordinance, or we're doing things like that, and we've had this discussion before you were city attorney, and we talked, and a lot of planning commission had this, they always kept saying, we need to stop coming from the top down with our ordinances and things such as that. It should come from the bottom up. And it definitely is with this. I just wondered at any given, not that I think that city staff needs to be, but I think they do need to be. And Commissioner Haymore, you can maybe, where should we be involved with this? Because it's their policies and procedures. Is that something that we don't look at ever as staff?
Yeah, in my opinion, at this point, it'd be the staff's more of a resource. I think they've got at least one framework of potential set of policies under the manual. And there's just gonna be questions, hey, how does this work? Do we want to improve it? In our staff meeting, Darren had a good suggestion in terms of how can we work better or address things. So it might be something, and that he brought up work meetings. Is that something the planning commission or the staff want to sit down and say, we think a work meeting would be good to address 1, 2, and 3. It's different than what we're doing now. So I think at this point, it's kind of a back and forth. There may be some additional suggestions. Staff would come in and say, this is how we can improve the process or work better, the city working better with an applicant that may come up. And then there's going to be questions or comments. Is this a good idea, a bad idea, that the planning commission will discuss amongst themselves, or maybe reach out to Darren and say, hey, you're the main staff member over this planning commission. What do you think about this? And I think that'd be a healthy conversation back and forth with questions and answers.
Everybody knows with Riker, my contract is that I will fill in the interim until we get another planning and zoning administrator. So it's put back on me a little bit. So I appreciate that definition because I don't want to overstep anywhere. And I just want to be a support. I
And
want to
I'm
be help.
sorry, I should have explained to the other commissioners that Riker gave his resignation. His last day is tomorrow. So if you didn't know that, I'm sorry. I should have told you that at the first of the meeting. So
That's a huge shoe to fill,
it's,
Darren.
yeah,
Well,
we're going to miss him.
So when I first came to work here, I was serving as both the engineering side and the planning commission side and the assistant city manager. So now I'm just assistant city manager and director of engineering services. But Riker took this position and made it much better and bigger. And so
You did a great job.
to come in and take over with what he's doing. I've been several days sitting down with him to find out where he's at, where ordinances are, where our subdivision ordinance, we're going through an annexation policy that's through a consultant as well. There's just a lot of stuff he was doing that I won't be able to give all of that time. So I hope that we can get somebody that's knowledgeable in the future to take his place because
I hope so too.
somebody's hard.
Well, and I know we have a lot of ordinances that are being worked on. Riker was in the middle of working on them. You've got a lot of them too. Seems to me, it would be nice if we could get a couple of them coming through at a time.
Right
So
now,
that we don't get overwhelmed.
so your next meeting, as I stated we have the animal, the
The animal, chicken one.
chickens and the residential. So you'll see those on your next meeting
Okay,
with a
good.
public hearing. And so, yeah. You're going to see him trickling for the fruits of his work. You're going to be seeing that for a while.
When you say next meeting, you mean July?
Yeah.
If you guys are meeting in July, yep, once a month.
So I think it's that we need to work together, staff, and to be good government, we need to be able to work with staff, ordinances, legals, and the whole reason we're up here and appointed is we have different opinions and views. And that is good government, to be able to work together, not agree. You don't have to be a yes man or everything agree, but to bring the points out and everything else. But if you can't work with government, then you shouldn't be in government. And I have always said, if you can't government doesn't work like a business and be smart and things like that, then they shouldn't be in the job of government. That they should be, so the normal man can succeed and grow. That's what our nation's about. Our country's about, giving us those opportunities, and every residence in this community, those opportunities to have a better life. And I've always felt it's our responsibility to enhance the quality of life of those that live here and protect the quality of life of those that have died here and with all the families here. So I think that's just good government.
Would agree.
I agree. Okay,
Agreed.
all right. I need a motion to adjourn if we're done.
I so move.
Okay,
Second.
just like that. A second?
Aye.
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 Okay. It is 6:22.
7:22.
7:22.